Today on the Crime Reel, we shall be looking at the life and crimes of Jill COIT, who is more famously known as the Louisiana Black Widow. Jill Lonita Billiot was born in Louisiana on the 11th of June 1944. She had what can be defined as a very normal childhood, living with her father, Henry, who was a tugboat captain, and her mother, Juanita, who was a full-time mum. Her family were by no means rich, but Jill seemed to have everything she needed in life. When she was about 6 years old, her brother Mark was born. She greatly resented the new baby, as she loved the attention of being an only child. During her school years, she was popular and smart, and seemed to have many friends. At the age of 15, Jill decided that she wanted to move from Louisiana to live with her grandparents in Indiana. At her new high school, Jill soon attracted the attention of many of the boys with her model good looks and southern accent. She soon became fascinated with a young man named Larry Eugene Einan, and at the age of 17, Jill dropped out of school to marry 18-year-old Larry. Larry started working as an apprentice bricklayer in Wabash, Indiana, but within a year the relationship had soured and Jill filed for divorce. She withdrew their few $100s of savings from their shared bank account and returned to her last place to finish high school, also in Indiana. Jill then enrolled in Northwestern State University, where she met the man who was soon to become her second husband, Stephen Moore. When Jill was just 20, they married and welcomed their baby, Stephen Seth Moore. That was in the following year when she was 21. However, soon after Stephen was born, the couple separated. Less than a year later, Jill became involved with another man. Whilst on a night out in New Orleans, she met William Clark COIT Jr., a wealthy businessman who was 15 years her senior. At this point, Jill filed for divorce from her second husband, Stephen, but unknown to William, she did not wait for her divorce to be finalised before marrying him on the 29th of January 1966. Jill was just 22 at the time of her third marriage. William adopted Jill's son from her second marriage, and 9 months later, in November 1966, Jill and William welcomed another son, who they named William Andrew COIT, who was known as Andrew. In March 1967, 14 months after her marriage to William, Jill's divorce from her second husband, Stephen, was finalised in Louisiana. Jill and William went on to have another son in March 1968, who they named William Clark COIT III. The COIT family then moved to Texas, where William continued to work hard and provided Jill with a luxurious lifestyle that she had never had the opportunity of before. William was totally besotted with Jill, but it would seem that Jill was simply in love with the lifestyle which he could give her. While William was working away, Jill had numerous affairs. William eventually confronted her and accused her of only marrying him for his money. With their relationship in tatters, Jill filed for divorce on the 8th of March 1972. She took the children and emptied the house. Shortly afterwards, William withdrew several $1,000s in cash from his Tenneco credit union account and told a friend that at least it would be one thing that Jill could not get her hands on. 21 days after divorce proceedings were started, on the 29th of March 1972, the body of William Clark COIT was found in the hallway of his home in Houston. He had been shot in the head, arm, and twice in the back. The money he had withdrawn from his credit union account was nowhere to be found. Jill disappeared immediately after William's death. She became the main suspect in his murder and was eventually located in New Orleans, where she had admitted herself to a psychiatric institution for acute hysteria and emotional distress. With the assistance of her attorney, Louis DeRosa, She avoided contact with the detectives that were investigating William's murder. The case remains unsolved to this day, with Jill COIT still being the number one suspect. At the age of 28, Jill COIT is now a widow with a substantial inheritance from the estate of her murdered husband. The following year, in 1973, Jill moves to California, where she meets a wealthy retiree by the name of Bruce Johansson. Bruce was in his 90s when he met Jill, and with the assistance of her attorney, Louis DeRosa, Jill managed to convince Bruce to adopt her. Also in 1973, Jill married her fourth husband, a US Marine Corps Major, Donald Charles Brody. The following year, in 1974, the elderly Bruce died and left a large amount of property and money to Jill. The settlement of the estate is again handled by her attorney, Louis DeRosa. After less than 2 years of marriage, Jill and Donald got divorced, and within a year, in 1976, Jill married her attorney, Louis DeRosa, in Mississippi. Their marriage is a tumultuous one, and they separate many times. During one of these separations, in March 1978, Jill married her sixth husband, Eldon Dwayne Matzka, in Ohio, despite still being married to Louis DeRosa. 8 months into her marriage to Eldon, she travels to Haiti to divorce Louis, but this divorce is not recognised in the US, so she remains married to both Louis and Eldon. Details of her marriage to Eldon are scarce, and it is unknown when or if she divorced him. However, being definitely married to Louis and possibly to Eldon, it did not stop Jill from marrying husband number 7. On the 6th of January 1983, Jill married Carl Steele, a teacher in Indiana. Before the year was out, Jill had once again travelled to Haiti, this time to divorce Carl. Again, this divorce was not legal. Despite this, Jill still cleaned out their bank accounts, stole all of their possessions, and managed to get her hands on Carl's family inheritance. Carl would later state that he felt lucky to be alive, as there were many occasions when he felt that Jill was plotting to kill him. It wasn't until 1985 that Jill legally divorced Louis DeRosa. This left her still married to Carl, husband number 7, and possibly Eldon, husband number 6. After a relatively quiet period in her life, in 1991, Jill sets her sights on a man by the name of Gerald Boggs. Gerald was one of the wealthiest bachelors in Colorado at that time. A quietly spoken, well-respected man who ran a very successful business. He was a military veteran and a keen photographer. Shortly into their courtship, Jill told Gerald that she was pregnant, and they married soon after. In reality, Jill had undergone a hysterectomy several years earlier. Jill and Gerald started to prepare the nursery and also go and do lots of shopping for baby items. When Jill was due, she insisted upon going to her home in Louisiana to give birth. When she returned from Louisiana, she told the tragic story of how their daughter had died during labour. Gerald had many suspicions about this story, and when he found that Jill was still legally married to Carl Steele, he had the marriage annulled. Shortly after the annulment, Jill legally divorced Carl Steele and took legal action against Gerald, seeking a payout of $100,000. A short relationship with Michael Backus, a telephone company maintenance and repairman, followed before Jill moved to Las Vegas in 1992, where she marries husband number 9, a retired US Navy Chief Petty Officer by the name of Roy Carroll. It is also believed that she married Michael Backus, the telephone engineer, at some point in 1992. The ongoing civil case between Jill and Gerald became increasingly acrimonious. Gerald started to record abusive phone calls from Jill, and he planned to submit evidence of Jill's bigamist past in the civil trial. With a hearing of the trial scheduled for the end of October, the story once again takes a sinister turn. On the 22nd of October 1993, husband number 8, Gerald Boggs, was murdered in his home in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. He had been stunned with a stun gun, badly beaten, and shot with a pistol. Jill claims she was camping in Fort Collins with Michael Backus at the time of the murder, but then left the US and then travelled to Mexico City in Mexico. She soon begins to run out of money and then returned to Colorado. On the 23rd of December 1993, Jill and Michael Backus were arrested and charged with the murder of Gerald Boggs. At the trial, Jill's son from her second marriage testified against her, saying that he believed that his mother had killed both William Clark COIT and also Gerald Boggs. He told the police that his mother had told him how she planned to kill Boggs, and on the night of the killing she had called him and said, "Hey baby, it's over and it's messy." He then further testified that he lived in fear of his mother. Witnesses came forward to say that Jill had approached them with false information about Gerald to try to arrange for them to kill him, and when they refused she said that she would just have to do it herself. Additionally, a stun gun was found in Jill's car. In March 1995, Jill and Michael were both found guilty of first-degree murder. They were both sentenced to life imprisonment and given a $1 million fine to prevent them from subsequently profiting from their life stories. In November 1997, Jill appealed her life sentence. However, this appeal was denied. Despite being incarcerated, Jill's need for constant male attention was not yet finished. In 1998, Jill posted on several different online sites about looking for a husband. Once the prison service found out about these details, they were then promptly removed from the websites. Today, Jill is 80 years old and is still being held at Denver Women's Correctional Facility. She will spend her final days there with no possibility of parole. Michael Backus is 79 and incarcerated at Limon Correctional Facility, also to serve life without parole. So that concludes today's story about the Louisiana Black Widow, Jill COIT. Some of you may recognise this story from one that I covered over 4 years ago, but once again I listened to the original recording and I decided that it needed to be updated. There are many books and TV shows that have been covered about this case. Let me know if you've seen any of them. As ever, thank you so much for your continued support to me. Thank you for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye.